Welcome, Exiles. Let me bend your ear for a moment and tell you about the build I've been playing, a Bonestorm Deadeye. I believe Deadeye helps to alleviate some of Bonestorm's biggest weaknesses, namely mana cost, cast time, and clear speed. The Deadeye's Endless Munitions passive eases our need for mana and cast speed. This passive allows projectile skills to fire an additional projectile. When coupled with Scattershot, it pushes us to an important breakpoint for Bonestorm of 4 projectiles. Bonestorm uses additional projectiles per cast in order to charge up to the maximum of 20 projectiles, so Deadeye only needs 5 casts to get to the maximum 20. In contrast, every other class will need to cast 7 times in order to get to the maximum 20 projectiles. The 7th cast is also only using 2 of the 3 projectiles, so you get less damage and more mana cost for no additional damage. Another benefit from the extra projectile is that we will require significantly fewer increased cast speed rolls in our stats to reach the desired cast time for 1-tap Bonestorms. To get a 1-tap Bonestorm, I need about 0.39 cast time at 2.57 casts per second, which I am just over, but with 1 stack of Tailwind it takes me to the perfect cast speed to get the full barrage. As you can see, the first cast has a bone fall off the side, but the second one with 1 stack of Tailwind will push me over. Although we aren't utilizing Tailwind for the cast speed, it will still benefit our other spells. What we really want is its other benefits. Move speed, evasion rating, and less damage taken with the Wind Ward passive are very strong defensive layers to have. We will also be taking the Point Blank passive on the way to Endless Munitions, which will work in tandem with Stand and Deliver to maximize our damage up close. Bonestorm has some trouble clearing by itself, but with the Snake Pit ring and the Ricochet support it can clear quite nice. Snake Pit in your left ring slot for forking coupled with Ricochet and allocating the Split Shot passive node via Megalomaniac or anointing your amulet nets you very good clear. Ricochet has a unique interaction with Bonestorm in that since the skill is angled at the ground, Ricochet can bounce off the ground where other projectile skills would just fizzle out if they don't hit terrain. I have some footage in the background of myself testing single target with and without Ricochet support. As you can see, Ricochet makes a big difference. This interaction allows many more projectiles to shotgun the boss for a huge DPS increase. Speaking of bosses, your boss rotation will be to weapon swap to summon skeletons, soul offering, ball lightning into lightning warp, sigil of power, and then finally Eye of Winter, which will swap you back into weapon 1 so that you can cast Bonestorm. Our weapon swap is pretty simple. We want to have a chiming staff in order to get the Sigil of Power skill. The stats don't really matter. You will want to bind the skeletons, soul offering, ball lightning, and lightning warp to your weapon 2 slot. Bonestorm and Eye of Winter should be tied to your first weapon slot. While we are weapon swapped, I have duration nodes taken at the top right of the tree. I also use a time loss sapphire in this jewel slot to utilize the nearby clusters and get increased duration. I am currently using a jewel that increases my skill effect duration and offering duration per notable taken. Our weapon swap passive tree has 10 notables allocated in this small area. With this jewel, I'm getting 50% generic increased duration, and I'm also getting 100% increased skill duration of offerings. Gear is going to be what makes or breaks our survivability on this character. You will need as much evasion, energy shield, and HP as possible. Slams will still kill you since we won't be able to effectively use acrobatics unless we have godlike gear. For uniques, we're using the Snake Pit ring and the Bushwhack boots in order to pin. Pinning is a great extra avoidance layer, but it is also to generate charges for Combat Frenzy. With the Resonance Keystone, we will generate power charges to give us more crit chance from Charge Infusion and extra explosions on Bonestorm. When Bonestorm expends power charges, we will generate additional ES and additional crit damage from our passive tree. Megalomaniac will open up a big increase in damage with Stand and Deliver. The jewel I'm currently running also has Split Shot, so that I can anoint my amulet with Cut to the Bone. That allows me to break armor for full physical damage. Lastly, we're using Prism of Belief just to get some additional spell levels on Bonestorm since it is so impactful for the damage. On screen, I'll display the stats that we should be looking for on our gear pieces. In addition to Bonestorm, we're using some Spirit Gems in Combat Frenzy, Charge Infusion, and Grim Feast. Most of our other supporting spells are going to be used for our bossing setup. Eye of Winter allows us to apply critical weakness on hit, which gives us base critical chance for each projectile. Soul Offering used on our Skeletal Warriors is essentially an additional gem link with more damage multipliers. Similarly, Ball Lightning and Lightning Warp are used to create shocked ground, which makes enemies take increased damage. Essentially, this is a more multiplier as well. Sigil of Power is useful since we spend so much mana with this skill anyway, and it allows us to get additional damage from spending that mana. That's some of the more in-depth information about the build. If you would like to see all the gem links and information I may have missed, check out the max roll page that I will link in the description. That will include my loot filter, my current gear as I upgrade, any changes to the build, and a path of building link. Please note that Bonestorm is a super weird spell, and it isn't very friendly with PoE, so use that with a grain of salt. This was my first video, so if you have any suggestions, please let me know. I am aiming at conveying the information that is not apparent for newer players, and that sometimes gets skipped over by other build guides. So if you're new and I skipped some crucial information that you would like to hear, I'm all ears. Thank you for watching, and stay sane, Exiles.